Hello. Hi, Mark. Welcome.
Thank you, Claire. Good to be back in conversation again, as we've done a number of these over the last few years, haven't we? But we always have some very deep and profound chats, I think. So looking forward to another
I
one
agree.
today. Catching up on our
Awesome.
journeys.
Yeah. What's new with you?
Well, I think I was just saying before we started out, big focus for last year and now going into 2025 is the journey of entrepreneurship. And I was on another podcast last week. We talked about there's something that happens, I think, on the path of awakening or spiritual development, you could say. At some point where we shed enough of the layers, we've done enough of our own healing, we start to feel like we'd like to support or help others in some way. And so I think it's a natural step in the journey of healing and spiritual development to want to step into entrepreneurship. That's certainly what I see with a lot of people I connect with and work with. And what is entrepreneurship? It can seem like quite a scary word, I think, for people. Business entrepreneurship. It can seem like. I remember when I first started thinking about business, I was like, "Well, I could never do that. I haven't got a clue where to start. I've got no experience in it."
Mm-hmm.
But the amazing thing about the times we're living in is it really does open it up to anybody um, who wants to share their story, and that's all it is, really. This age of the personal brand. What's your story? How have you helped yourself, and then how can you help others on their own path? And then it's just about sharing that in an honest, vulnerable, and clear way as much as possible. And there's all kinds of, like we were talking about, there's all kind of extras on top of that. Who's your ideal customer? And then you've got to create a lot of content and a way for people to work with you further. But essentially, that's what we're building, isn't it? When you talk about a personal brand, this is the age of the personal brand. It's no longer about having to work time for money as most our parents probably did in the past, and and their parents. There's a whole world of opportunities open up thanks to the internet and social media, and so anyone can take advantage of that. It doesn't have to be a scary thing to build a business. You just got to put yourself out there and share your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it because we're part of the same community, and I know you've had a business for a while, but you also still have a job, right?
Mm.
And we met, it's been now maybe 3 years, and we started doing these kind of lives, podcasts, and I find it interesting that now we're both like kind of on a very similar
Mm.
in a very similar part of our journeys where we're both like, okay, like now I'm really gonna build that up, and like now I'm really gonna focus on a podcast, and gonna start a group
Yeah.
program. And I don't know, I've actually thought about this a lot in the past because when I started doing this work, and of course first you're just focused on yourself, and you're just like, wow, like your eyes open up to a million things you didn't know about yourself and about your
Mm.
life that you've been hiding from. And it just hits you like a train, and you're like, I'm completely paralyzed now. I can't even move.
Mm.
Like, all this trauma's coming up, all these limiting beliefs, everything that I've been hiding from myself and pretending I have a good life and I feel good. Now it's all like coming to the surface, and you just feel like shit for months or years. Honestly,
Yeah.
like, it can happen, right? And so you don't even think about this, but then you kind of still like, oh, wow, this is so cool to be a coach. And then you see maybe other people in our community who have done the work, like, because I started the work right at the very beginning, like 5 years ago when our mentors launched this new program, but then I took a long break. And then my friends who started with it with me at the same time, they've just continued and did the whole training, and then they became coaches. When I started, like when I
Mm.
rejoined one of their high level programs, one of my friends who started the work with me was my coach, because I was like, oh, like it's weird, but like I think he can be my coach. And then you kind of see that for yourself, and you're like, I want to do that too, right? And then you
Yeah.
start healing, and you start understanding all these things about yourself and about other people because you're in conversation, you're in community, and you start being able to help others, and like also first of all
Mm.
coach yourself, right? And that's already massively valuable because you have
Mm.
all these insights, and that's basically what a personal brand is, right? Like, you have a story, you had a problem, you've found a solution, so now you're qualified to help others in the same situation to improve their lives, right? And so you start sort of looking up to that, and then you see how much this work can transform lives, just like by 1,000 times, honestly. And
Yeah.
it kind of feels crazy or almost irresponsible not to do this work.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I found that it was like so much in front of me. And I was like, this is what I'm gonna do because I can, so I should, because I have this gift now, I have this skill that I've honed and invested in so much time and money and effort. So I should do this. And then I actually like sat with it and I thought about it so many times. I was like, do I really want to do this? Or is it just because it's so much in front of me and I can, so I feel like I should or I want to
Mm,
because like this is the environment I've been immersed in so much. And so I've sat with that for a long time, but I think I've always sort of known deep down, even before I started coaching work, that eventually I would have like a personal brand because I started traveling when I was a teenager, right? And I always had so many stories and I love my independence and like I never thrived being an employee. And
mm.
so, but I think it took me like I knew I wanted to start a business maybe 3 years ago, I think. And I think it's literally like these days, like literally these past 3, 4 days that I'm like sitting down and really like refining what is it that I actually want to do. And like the core of it is pretty much the same. Like I'm using, a lot of the methods that we learned together in the programs, but also, from different programs. But then like there's a huge part of me and my own journey and my personality and my current life experience and my past life experience and my soul and who I am as a human, right? Because like we also need to bring in the ego, right? Because that's our personality and that's what
Yes.
makes us unique and that's what makes the personal brand. Otherwise, it'd just be, oh,
Yeah.
like soul,
We're
like
all
we're all
one.
one. But that's right. Like, how is that gonna
No
make you stand
perspective.
out, right?
Yeah.
And so I find it really took all this time for me to now sit down and be like, oh, like this is who Claire is, and this is who she wants to work with, and this is who she resonates with, and the messaging is going to sound completely different from what our mentors do and maybe from what you're going to do and from other people that we know
Of
do,
course.
even though the foundation is the same. But I think like my business is going to look completely different than maybe your business is going to look like, right? So that's kind of what's coming up for me with this, like, yes, like I do want to help, but then like, is it really coming from me, or is it just coming from like this is the kind of community, this is the kind of people that I've been surrounded by and aspired to, because after all, like they're my mentors. Like I chose them because I look up to them, right, as my mentors. And so I look up to them, so I want to do the same thing because I think it's cool. So I think
Mm.
there for me that for sure it was a long process of really like coming back to myself and like actually how much do I resonate with the work that they do? Like I resonated with it then, I still resonate with it to a some certain degree and to a high degree, right? But like to a certain degree, I don't resonate with some parts of it anymore, and I don't want to do that myself in the same way that they do it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. It's yeah, but that essentially, I think, is what everybody's doing. Look at all the successful entrepreneurs out there. They've all learned from somebody, and they're all sharing the same ideas that they've learned from somebody. But and this information is passed down. But it's all like an entrepreneur is somebody who's taken a series of ideas from different teachers and coaches, whatever that might be, and kind of merged them together with their own story. So everybody's unique, and in that sense, that even if me and you, for example, were teaching the same techniques and methods, there's going to be certain people that appeal to my energy, and there's going to be certain people that appeal to your energy. So there's no competition as such. You'll always be unique. But then think about what you produce in, for example, a group coaching program will be completely different to what I produce, even though the foundation is energetics and healing. And yeah, just another thing I thought of then when you were saying it. I remember when I started out wanting to, because I knew I was done with advertising. I was done with the um, time for money thing. Even though, as you say, I still use that to support me. Um, I wanted to build a way out of that, and I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. When I look back on my life, I wanted to say, okay, I actually made a difference, other than just selling brands I wasn't particularly connected to. But I thought, who is going to benefit? But I just thought about where I was 3 years previously, or where I was 5 years previously. If anyone who's doubting what they can offer the world, just think what you could offer yourself 3 years ago, and what you would say to that person, and then think there are probably millions of people out there in that position that you could potentially help. Um,
Mm.
Even though there's this massive entrepreneurs movement at the moment, there's still a fraction of the planet who are actually building their own businesses and becoming entrepreneurs. There's still a massive majority who are seeking help, dealing with all kinds of challenges in their lives, and there'll never be a scarcity of people to help. So, that kind of helped me to get past that initial imposter syndrome of, well, who am I to be a coach and who can I help? It's like, think of where I was 3 years ago, and that guy, I know I could help massively because they were in a really difficult place, and I needed me, the person I am today. So it really is about stepping up there and putting yourself out there. And the other thing you said, which is interesting, is what I love about this energetic healing work. It's not only a case of healing past trauma, for example. Um, if you start stepping into a path of personal growth, whatever that is for you, it could be entrepreneurship. For me, is the big one. It's a massive mountain to climb, and we haven't been educated on entrepreneurship, so we've got to learn from scratch, basically. But any path that you go on that really pushes yourself, if you want to kind of change careers or promotion or start a new relationship, whatever it might be, what it's
Mhm.
going to do is it's going to start bringing up um, limiting beliefs and self-doubt and essentially our traumas from the past. But that's the beauty of the journey, because if you stay in your comfort zone your whole life, you never grow. But if you step into the path of discomfort or the path of growth, then it's not like the thing you want just falls in your lap. A magical six-figure business just drops in your lap in 6 months' time. What happens is the universe goes, all right, well, in order to get that, you're going to have to face all this stuff that's in the way. That's how it works. But I think for a lot of people, it's like they go into creating a business, or they want to create a certain amount of money, and it doesn't happen straight away. And all this doubt and fear and painful stuff comes up, and they go, "Oh, yeah, that wasn't what I wanted. This is nothing to do with what I wanted. Obviously, I'm not doing it right, or I'm not doing manifestation right, or something like that." Without realizing that that is the key to face and feel through and heal all of this past trauma. And that's the beauty of it, because otherwise all this stuff lies dormant in our systems. All these traumas and parts are just sat there underneath the surface controlling our lives. When you step into the path of growth, it all comes up to be felt for and healed. And I'm always experiencing this on my own journey. It's like, when I'm about to make a breakthrough in any part of my business. For example, I've just created this group coaching program. I made it available to 5 people. So I've done a couple of workshops um, to prepare for it. And after the first workshop, I had 2 people signed up. So I'm thinking, okay, that's great, but it's not enough for me to run the program. And it brought up a lot of sadness within me because I didn't have enough to
Yeah.
run this group program. And I was like, wow, okay, this is an interesting reaction. Instead of going, going into victim mode or whatever, I just sat with that, all the sadness that was coming up, the disappointment. And one day I woke up, and when I thought about the group program, I didn't feel that sadness. I was just like, okay, well, 2 people. Well, maybe I'll do a solo thing. Maybe I'll do a one-on-one program. And within a couple of days, another 3 people dropped in. So for me, that's kind of validation of what I'm talking about here. It's
Wow.
the path. The path is, yeah. There's two aspects to the work. Yes, there's the outer work of building a business. You do actually have to do some doing to create it, but that 50% of it also is the being work, the feminine work, which is kind of just feeling and healing into the energy as it comes up. And the external reality is a reflection of our internal vibration. So you shift your vibration, external reality changes to match it. And that's why I love this work, because it's relevant to anything you want to do in your life. It can help you in anything, any way you want to grow. Essential to balance the doing and the being.
Yeah, I love that so much, and I was kind of giggling as you were talking because this is literally what I went through these past few months. I launched my group program in December, and a part of me is like, should I talk about this? Like, this is too vulnerable, and I'm going to expose
Mm.
my business, and are people not going to trust in me and my brand and my business? You're trying to always, of course, you always try to keep it up a little bit on social media. Like, my program is selling out. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
join my
You want to
program
sell the
now,
positive.
right? Um, and it was so tough. Like I just because I've been wanting to launch something for I've been wanting to start my business, like really launch it out for over a year now, and then I don't think we've talked since, but so I had some, maybe we did, I don't know. I've had some deep medicine journeys this October, and things just kind of fell into place. And it was like, oh my God, this is who I am. This is what my experience is, and this is what I want to see in the world. And not seeing it in the world like pains me, and this is what I need to do because I want to see this change in the world. Like I need to get this work out yesterday. Like I need to do this. And so I sat down and I wrote the whole structure of the program, and everything was just coming through. And I was like, oh my God, like it's here. Like I designed the program because until then I just didn't have any clarity. That's why I couldn't take action, because when you don't have clarity about what you want to do, you just, how do you take action if you don't know if you're going south or north or east or west? Like how do you like, where do you go? You just, like take one step there, but you don't know where you're going, so you're just kind of stuck in place. And so all of a sudden I had this clarity. So it's like, oh my God, like I need to start going because I know where I'm going. And so I started working on it, and then November was so busy socially, like it's just such a fun month, but I didn't really get much work done. And then I was like, oh, like it's December now, and it's going to be Christmas, and like nobody's going to buy anything over Christmas, and then it's going to be the next year. Like I need to launch this before the end of the year, and so I need to launch this before Christmas. And so I need to launch this like next week pretty much. And so I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I was like, you know what? Like done is better than perfect, right? And so I was like, I just need to do this because otherwise I know myself. I've been postponing this, and like, oh, like I'm going to take my time for like 2 years, So I'm just going to do this. And I was so not ready, right? And I was like, I'll figure it out as I go. And then I was like, I'm going to like bunch prepare content because I need to post every single day. And then I didn't because I was like busy and overwhelmed, and I was figuring out like I'm not a tech person, so I struggle so much with like websites and landing pages and like links connecting and just like it honestly like, and then like Instagram would bug on me and like it wouldn't work, and then like just like everything, right? Just like, and I'm like, why does technology hate me? Like I was like, I don't want to like create this story in my head, but literally this is my experience every single day. Like I try to do something, and like as I figure it out, which is already hard for me, like it just, the platform stops working or something. I'm like, why is this happening to me, right? So I'm like, I'm trying not to be in this victim, but like, it's just like, why is this happening to me? So anyway, right? And then I didn't have the content prepared. And then just like you said, like all of my own stuff, basically, like who am I to be saying this on the internet? Who am I to be selling stuff on the internet? Like, who do I think I am? Like, nobody, who's going to buy my program, right? Like, what if nobody buys? Like, and then like, just kind of fighting the algorithm. It's like, and then like, I was like, oh, the algorithm has changed. Now, like, you get less views, but like, it's not shown to your followers, but if it's good, like people who don't follow you are going to see it. But I'm like, but nobody's seeing it. Like, literally, I like, and it just really felt like, to be very vulnerable here, it felt so like hard, like honestly so crushing, because I felt like I was pouring my heart and my soul into these posts on social media, like extremely vulnerable stuff about my story, not because I'm an exhibitionist and I want to be like, this is this thing that happened to me, like, everybody like pity me or look at me how cool I am. Not at all. Like I'd prefer not to share this stuff on social media, but I know that somebody out there needs to hear that, because I never heard that from anybody. And had I heard that from somebody, I would be like, oh my God, like I resonate with that. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I thought I was alone and I didn't even know how to think about this thing that happened to me or that I went through. But now that somebody else who's processed it and overcome it speaks about it from that place, like it helps me understand it, it helps me process it, and I want to heal this. So I resonate with you. So like, please tell me more, right? And so this is, and so like, there's so much resistance in me coming onto social media and saying these things, but I feel like I need, it's not even me. It's like, I know I need to say this. I know this is coming through. I know this is my story for a reason. Like the mess becomes your message. Like you experience something so that you can help others, overcome it too, because you did. And so I felt like I'm sharing all this vulnerable stuff on social media, and nobody's even like, nobody's liking it, nobody's commenting it, but nobody's even seeing it. Like you can see how many people saw your post, and like nobody's even seeing it. So I'm like, how am I supposed to sell my program if the algorithm's not even showing my posts to anybody, right? Yeah. And so honestly, like in the middle of it, it just felt so crushing. I was like, why am I doing this? Like I'm like trying to, serve the world, and like I just feel like like, like I just feel like the opposite. I just feel like people are must look at me and like, why is she coming here like talking about all her, whatever. And I'm like, I feel like I'm not serving anyone because nobody's even seeing my post. Like, what am I doing here? So like all of this, and I knew like, and luckily, or like not luckily, I probably wouldn't have done this had I not done this much work of personal development before and this much healing. But so, at this point where I'm at, like I do have that overview where I'm like, I know this is just, parts of me that are not healed yet that are
Yes.
coming up and that are, saying all these things and that feel heard. But like, so I did have this overview, but like it was really intense, right? And so then you're in the middle of it, and then you're like, how am I now supposed to go and create content for social media when I'm so confident about my program and like trying to sell it where I feel like this, right? And so I was like, oh, like this is why you batch prepare content in front of, before the launch or whatever. So I've learned all these lessons, but honestly, going through that process was so hard emotionally. Like it was truly hard. But
Yeah.
now I feel like honestly I feel like I'm a completely different person on the other side of it. And I was feeling into that, and I kept saying that. I was like, okay, like even if I don't sell anything throughout this launch, just going through that process, like because I know
Yeah.
how this works, I know how energetics work, and I've experienced this a million times through my own healing journey for the past 5 years. Like I know that if something comes up and I don't deny it this time, and I truly sit with it and feel through the depths of it, no matter how uncomfortable it is, I know that I'm gonna move through it. And on the other side,
Yeah.
life's gonna be so much better. And so I was like, even if nothing else, even if like business wise it doesn't work out, like even if I don't learn, even like I'm gonna surely like at least learn a lesson, right? But like even just emotionally, like what I'm going through is so intense, and these parts would have never come up had I not pushed myself like
Push
through that
yourself.
birth
Yeah.
cutout pretty much, right? Like had I not gone through that, horrible, like emotionally staring thing. And I was like, I'm sure. And I was like, I couldn't see it. And I was like, I hope this is true. But I was like, I'm sure on the other side, it's going to be so much better, right? And it's true. Like now I'm like, okay, like let's go. Like, my program is up and running. And like, surely, I don't have as many people as I would have wanted to or anything like that. But like, let's do this, And like, once you sit with that, like, oh, I don't have enough people, or like, oh, it could have gone better, you're like, no, like, we're starting, like let's do this, like let's focus forward, and like it's just gonna get better. And I find that the emotional, like yeah, that whole like melodrama of like, okay, like should I be doing this, why did not more people sign up, or like do I really have to say this on social media and people are looking at me, what are they thinking? Like I've gone through that to the depth, and now I don't really feel that anymore. And so now I'm like, okay, like now I'm just excited, right? And so everything that you were saying, I was like, yeah, like this is exactly it. And
Yeah.
just one more thing, to sort of give it the overview. It's really, and I've heard that from a business mentor that I follow who's been in business for like 14 years, and he makes like millions now, and he's really excellent at what he does, right? And really nails down like the different steps of the business process of the pretty much like this kind of person, like solopreneurs who are educators or coaches or just help people, learn something or improve their lives. And he says this is really like the acceleration of personal development, because like when you show up, when you try to serve the world and put yourself out there and build a personal brand and sell things to people, all of your stuff, literally all of your stuff comes up that otherwise might have never come up. And so it was like kudos to you people, because it's really hard. And he was like, you know what? And if you're like starting out and you're having a struggle, he's like, a year from now, this struggle that you're having such a hard time to overcome, like it's something that's going to happen to you every day, and it's not going to be a struggle at all. But the struggles that you're going to have at
Yeah.
that point are going to be like, if you had you couldn't even have this struggle today because like you're not even at that level of your business and of your personal growth. Like if like I don't know, like if you had that struggle today, like you could never handle it. And so that's why like you're being served as like, first somebody's gonna like put a thumbs down in your YouTube video, right? And the first time that's gonna happen, you'll be like, oh, like somebody didn't like my video, right? And then you're like, okay, and then it's gonna happen every day, and you're like, whatever, right? And then next time somebody's gonna write like a negative comment, and the first time you're gonna be like, oh, like people don't like my video, right? And then it's gonna happen every day. I'm gonna be like, yeah, whatever, like 3,000 people like it, and one person writes a shitty comment. Like, what does that mean, right? And then the next time, I don't know, like maybe somebody's gonna call you and ask for a refund or whatever, and like every time something like that happens, it's gonna really like
Mm.
touch your ego, and you're gonna be like, oh, why is this happening to me? People don't like me. But then you start, like once you heal through that, like you've gone a level further, and you're really just healing your wounds. So it's like, who am I, and how much am I going to let myself be influenced by what people think? And there's always going to be people who are going to judge you or criticize you or reject you, and it's really, really, really hard, right? Like honestly,
Yeah.
like I find that really hard, but it's like, okay, like do I really want to allow myself to be influenced by what people, especially people on the internet, like what they think about me? And I say that, right? And again, like it's something that I need to work on every day, but it's true. And it's like, okay, like how do I work on that? How do I build that unfuckwithable energy that I can just do my thing, and like trust that the people that need to hear my message, they're gonna hear it if I'm just unafraid of speaking it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wrote down life happens for me. I mean, that kind of like what you're saying there seems to be sum it up. It's a big shift that we go through when we go like from life happens to me to life happens for me. Because if you, like you said, if you put a video out there and it gets a load of hates in the comments, you could easily go into victim mentality. Oh, they don't understand me. They're not. I'm just understood in my time, and they're not worthy. They don't get it. Or you can go, oh, that made me feel sad. That made me feel angry. Thank you, because you pointed out something in myself that I need to look at and to heal. It sounds like quite a small thing, but that it's a huge shift for someone to go through, to suddenly go, okay, everything happens for me. So if I create a program for 5 people, only 2 show up. Okay, what's that bringing up within me? That's bringing up a lot of sadness in there. Great, that's stuff that I get to feel for and shift. And if I do that, then I'll get the result on the other side of it. And this is like you're saying, on the entrepreneur's journey, there'll always be something else. Like, okay, filling out your first program, you're trying to get to your first 10K month, or whatever it is, trying to get 10,000 followers, or exiting a business even at the top end, and there'll always be something else. I follow quite a few founders, and they talk about they exited a business for 7 figures, and it's like, oh, that's supposed to be the pinnacle of entrepreneurship. But obviously, what happens when you get to the top of that mountain is there's another one behind it, because they often feel like, oh, so what do I do now? My whole purpose was tied up in that business, and so they can sink into depression off the back of that huge success. So there is no end to the journey. There is no end to our development or our healing. So it's important to I always say this, like, reframe our idea of success. Success is not somewhere in the future when we hit a certain number of followers, or a certain amount of money, or sell the business or whatever. Success is the way we feel. It's how you feel in the moment. And also being on the path of growth is success every day, just kind of dealing whatever's there for you. Instead of like putting someone on a pinnacle who is earning $1 million a month, whatever it is. It's like, that even though they're projecting this idea of, oh, I've got this amazing life of freedom and success and money, they'll have their own stuff coming up off the back of that. If you build a huge business and you've got 30 people working for you, that's a lot of stress. That's not something that is like, oh, suddenly life is like a Disney movie and it's all easy. It just brings a different challenge, a different flavor to your suffering potentially. So there's always why this work is always going to be relevant. And this is what I saw in a lot of entrepreneurs communities. I'm in an entrepreneurs community now, and I think it's really, really essential if you're building a business to have support and mentorship. You've got to have people who've walked the path. You've got to have people helping you on the path. Something you talked about there, which is something everyone goes through. You start posting on social media, and nobody notices. It's just like, what the hell am I doing this for? It's completely pointless. But having a community who can support you, and having a squad of people who comment on your posts, for example, and like your posts, it gives you that extra like lift. Oh, yeah, people are seeing it. And then obviously if they comment and they like, more people see it. So it just gives you that extra support as you start, when you just start off and you're starting to go on the journey. That's why, and you need people then who've been through challenges that you're experiencing and know how to get through it. But one thing I miss, that's missing from those kind of entrepreneur communities, which are really important, is a more feminine energy of, like we're talking about, of healing, of sitting with and processing energy as it comes up. Because the energy of entrepreneurship is very much in the masculine, like this doing, just keep pushing, keep driving, striving. I don't know if you've heard this phrase, but burn the boats, which essentially means quit your job and just give yourself no choice but to make this business work. The problem with that attitude, it does work for some people. They do build a successful business. Not many people do, but it puts you into an energy of fear and stress and overwhelm, essentially, because you're like, oh, I've got to make this work, and you're just doing. You never stop working all the hours of the day and into the night, and just like desperately trying to make this thing work. And that desperation and that lack is coming across in everything you put out to do with the business. In your posts, people can feel it, or on whatever content you put out there, there's this energy of just like desperation, which obviously is a low vibration energy. The energy you put into the universe, out into the universe, comes back to you like a mirror. So you're getting low vibration results. You're getting desperate people coming back to you because of the desperate energy you're putting out there. So not to say that it can't work, because obviously some very well-known entrepreneurs have had success that way. But what I would say is that even though you might have outward success by building a business from just doing and scarcity and fear and lack, those parts will still be in your system, even though if you've managed to override them or push them away in some way through just working non-stop. All those parts and all that energy is still built up and stuck in your system. And at some point, if you do stop, it's all going to come up and it's going to completely crash you, basically. So it's not like you might be able to create external success without combining it within a healing work, but at some point it's going to catch up with you, and that's why I see it in a lot of entrepreneurs. One in particular, I read a post from the other day. He says, oh, I just love working. I work 90-hour weeks. He's literally just working all the time. His entire life he's working on the business, and that's what he promotes as his method to success. And it's just like, if you do that, what you're essentially doing is you're just kind of like working to avoid the pain and the trauma and the stress or whatever is there underneath the surface. And if he ever does stop, and he has to stop because everybody does at some point, that stuff is just going to all just come up and overwhelm him. He hasn't processed any of it. He's just keeping it at bay by addiction to work, basically. So even if we can create some kind of external success through that way of working, I think it's always going to catch up with us eventually. So much better have that balance between the masculine and the feminine, the doing and the being, as we grow, and then we can grow in a sustainable way.
I love that, and thank you for bringing that through. My target audience is women who kind of like have it all on paper. People who like me have traveled the world and they've done the things, but at some point you kind of come and realize, like, but why is this all there is to life? Like, why do I still feel like, why don't I
feel the same?
Why don't I feel, and so I was just listening to you, and I think this can be a little bit of a trap, because it's like, first you're like, oh, like, I've been like having this fancy job and traveling the world, and like I kind of have it all, but I don't. So why do I feel? And then you kind of slow down, and then you start healing, and then you start connecting more with who you are in your essence as a human, as a soul. Like, what's your purpose? What's your, unique spark? That everybody has that unique, uniqueness to them, and their unique gift and their unique message. And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna start a business, and I'm gonna like do that thing and like live soul aligned. But I think kind of what you said there, like I feel like it can be a trap when you like first you go through that stage of like I'm gonna lean more into who I am and quit that job and like live my soul aligned, purpose aligned life. But I think, it can still again like drag you into that. And I think it's good because we're still, like, yeah, like you've done business for a while, but it's still, like we're still at the beginning of the entrepreneurial
Yeah.
journey, right?
Mm.
And there's going to be so much more. And as and like you said, you can keep on growing, so there's always going to be more to achieve, arrive to, experience, grow towards. And so I find like so now we can sort of like be like, oh, like let's, now that we know that this can happen, like let's look ahead and like make sure that we approach that well when that happens. But I think there is that tricky part of like, now I'm living soul aligned, and now it's just the same thing. It's like, okay, now I'm gonna have the followers, and now I'm gonna make a 10K month, and
Yeah.
now I'm gonna like hire this many employees, and now I'm gonna have this many programs, this many people in my program, and now excuse me, it's the morning and my throat is still a little bit sleepy. Yeah, so I find like, there's a little bit of a trap there of like, we're gonna get sucked into that again. And I think,
Yeah.
just having that awareness and like, again, like I'm so glad and so grateful that I have done so much work on myself and on my healing before starting this journey, that now I have this awareness that even when it drags me down, like I'm in it, I still have the awareness watching. It's like, this is just the process. This is just the part that's just happening right now. Like, let's just have the bigger overview. And then I have, a community and friends like you with whom I can have a conversation, and they're going to remind me the things that I know, but when you're in it, you forget, right? And so I think, it's always sort of like, what's the energy that I'm behaving, that I'm taking action from,
Yeah.
that, and just sort of staying, I think that's like the biggest lesson is just staying humble. And like, I'm not saying not being confident in your brand, in your messaging, in your work, or not having goals. Like, yeah, absolutely have goals, have dreams, but always sort of come back to, why am I doing this? Right? And when you come back to that, like even if you sign up one person for your program, you're like, I'm going to change this person's life.
Yes.
And I want to do this, right? And I want to run this program. And so like, yeah, it really fucking sucks that I'm going to run a group program for one person. But hey, I'm so excited, and I'm going to test it out, and, I'm going to experience it, and I'm going to learn so much. And what I find, what I find is when I run, be it one-on-ones or group coaching calls, I just love it so much. And it's almost like, yeah, honestly, yeah, I would do it for free. Like, I just love it. And I just feel so good afterwards. And it just feels so good. I'm in my flow, and, and then I can help people. And then there's also this, like, I feel good about myself because I'm good at this. So like, it's good for me. So yeah, so it's like, actually, yeah, this is why I'm doing it. So no matter what, like I said, I would do this, and I'm just going to do this. And again, it's hard, right? Because you feel like, why am I going to do this? I'm going to invest so much time and energy, and I'm going to be resentful because I'm not making money on this, But, at the end, like and there's always a decision to be made, right? But, and what's best for you, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this and you find yourself in a similar situation, but why are you doing this? And, like, yeah, just kind of, what's the energy behind this? Do I want to serve? Who do I want to be? Do I want to grow? Yeah, that's what's coming up for me. And yeah, also, yeah, you talked about balancing the masculine and the feminine. Of course, that's something that I'm extremely passionate about. And this is what I said, and then people who have listened to my podcast before, I'm sure they've heard me talk about this a lot. But I ran this experiment, and I recorded several podcast episodes with my friend Dan about it, who ran a similar experiment. But I ran this experiment of like, okay, like I quit my job and I want to start a business, but at some point I was like, this is just not flowing right now. I can't. I just can't. I just don't have it in me. Like, I'm not at that stage yet. And if I were to do it, I would just be pushing and forcing and struggling and just like trying to make it happen because I have to, because I'm supposed to be doing something, because I quit my job and I said I would build a business. So now I have to work on it. But I just really didn't feel it. And I was like, I refuse to build anything from that energy.
Yes, I remember
And
speaking to you at
so,
that time.
mhm.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just gonna take a break now and trust that it's gonna work out, and I'm just gonna live with my savings until it happens. And I don't know how that looks. I don't know what needs to
Mm.
happen for me to be at that place energetically where I can do this. I have no idea. But I'm just gonna lean into that trust. And so, I've been living with my savings for like almost 2 years now, right? And it's terrifying and it's crazy. But now I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. Like now, like let's fucking do this. Like I want to do this.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, but it's really and so for me, like last year or maybe 2 years ago already, I realized like, I want to be more in my feminine. Like I've been in my hyper masculine most of my life.
Mm.
And so I wanted to really step into and lean into my feminine. And for me, that was a great challenge at that time. And so that was kind of my intention. And, and then I succeeded in that. And I think now I've, really kind of mastered. Of course, there's always more to learn and more
Yeah.
to, you can surrender more and all that. But I think I've become really good at operating in the feminine and just like receiving, and even with my traveling and just like, being in the flow and like not being too structured. But then I was like, okay, if I want to build a business, now I need to bring back the masculine in a
There's
healthy
balance.
way
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
find, and that was my intention for the whole of the last calendar year, was finding a balance between the two. Because if I want to build a business, like I need a healthy masculine
Yeah.
that
You need
builds
to
it
do
and
something.
finds the
You need to do.
structure and the
Mm.
doing, right? And the accountability. But I also want, but also like I need my masculine to trust my feminine, because I'm so intuitive, I'm so
Mm.
creative, and
Right.
I have so many ideas, but I never acted on them. And one day I realized, wow, like my inner masculine doesn't trust my inner feminine. So like if
Mm.
I got a job and somebody told me do this, I'd be like, okay, like you told me to do this, and I would just work on it until it would be done. But if it's my own idea, it's like, yeah, like is it a good idea? Is it gonna work out? And I just don't put the energy into it. And I'm like, why is
Right.
that? Like it's not like I don't have it in me to accomplish a task. I really do, like I used to be a hustler. I studied at really hard universities and I would just like do, right? But I'm like, why can't I work, why can't I work on my own stuff? And so it's like, I need to bring these two together within me and have them communicate and trust each other and work together.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Love that. And we've all got to find that balance for ourselves. I think generally there's a global shift towards the feminine, as we all know, and we've got to, especially like I said, especially in entrepreneurs communities, it's really neglected, the healing work that needs to be done. And that's why I see so many entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, just fall away on the journey because the self doubt or the fear builds up, and they don't know how to process it. Um, yeah, that's why it's a big part of actually both our programs. Really, the other thing I was going to say is I noticed that as well. This idea of life has seasons, and you need to honor the season that you're in. Last year, I did a plant medicine ceremony in the autumn. No, it was, yeah, late summer, I would say. And last year, my business wasn't doing anything. I was getting absolutely nowhere. I was putting all this effort in, nothing was happening. And the plants seemed to say to me, you're in a season this year of shedding. This is like just kind of like releasing old energy. And as you go into the new year, you'll go into spring again. So you just need to honor where you're at. Just focus on your own healing and grow. Yeah, shedding internally, and then you'll be in a position where you can invite new energy. You'll clear all this old energy out for new energy to come in, and that really helped me actually because it's not like, oh, yeah, we are obviously affected by the seasons of the planet, but also you can have an entire year that is like an autumn season for you, where you just go through shedding, 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 and it's like a little mini dark night of the soul, where you're just kind of like invited to go inwards, and then you can feel the energy shift. Then at some point, it's like, okay, I'm in a season of creating now, that creating energy and you could say external progress, but neither's better than the other. You just have to honor where you're at, and it's that whole term of what we call aligned action. So it's honoring how you're feeling each day. Like today I've got a bit of a cold, so I've backed off a bit from the creating and the writing posts and all that kind of thing. And I've just kind of been listening to podcasts and just meditating, because I know if I create from this energy, it's not going to create the best results. Whereas, once this cold has passed and I'm feeling a bit more energized, okay, now I'm going to create. I'm going to record videos. I'm going to write posts. I'm going to reach out to people. I know that's the best place to get decent results. And the other thing I was going to say, I've got 5 minutes left. Setting the direction, really important when you start off on the entrepreneur's journey. And this is where this is what my whole program is about, purpose. Really important to define the direction you want to go in and the life you want to create when you start. Because what a lot of people do is like, oh, I'll build a side hustle, and I'll just basically sell anything that sells. I'll just go out there and like, oh, drop shipping. I saw somebody made some money out of drop shipping or affiliate marketing or Bitcoin. And I'll just kind of try these things out. I just want to make money. It's really important initially to get clear on what that purpose, like the questions we talked about earlier, like what challenges have you overcome in your life? What do people come to you for advice for? How have you helped people in the past? What is the vision of this world that you'd love to see? These kind of questions, and just take time out and just don't rush it. Just journal about these things. Get clear on your origin, your mission, your vision, and this can kind of craft this idea of a purpose, which is basically your unique way of serving others, what I call outer purpose. Inner purpose is the work of self-realization, the spiritual journey inward, which is the same for all of us. Outer purpose is the doing in the world. So it's different for everybody, depending on what our individual gifts, passions, and story is. So once you've established, my program now is all about establishing that inner purpose first. We've got that balance, got that alignment, the resource then to build our outer purpose from. Because we can't go into the world and start serving others if we're completely broken inside and we've got no energy. So we have to really establish the inner purpose first, then go out and build the outer purpose and start serving others. And it's really important then you've got that purpose. Okay, how I want to serve others, who I want to serve, because when you talk about a coaching program, unfortunately, not everyone's open to coaching and not able to invest in coaching. So you have to have a clearly defined person that you're going after, who actually can afford your program and will benefit from it. And the other thing I did early on was define my ideal day. I journaled about my ideal day, exactly what I was doing, who I was with, the work I was doing, how it felt. And I just check in with that ideal day that I've written. It's like a paragraph that I've written, a couple of paragraphs that I've written where I explain what I'm doing. And whenever I feel like a bit confused about where I'm going or doubting what I'm doing, I just read that and just kind of aligns me again. Okay, this is what I want. Gives me a lot of time. I don't want a business that takes up all my time and I've got 30 employees and I'm kind of like constantly traveling all over the world doing podcasts and stuff. What I want is to have a business that sustains me, gives me that financial abundance where I can serve others in group programs. And I've got plenty of time to spend in nature, plenty of time to meditate, plenty of time to work on my own healing and growth. And so I know that what kind of business I'm trying to build, and I'm not going to get pulled into something that isn't right for me. Like, it's so easy to get pulled into this idea of like infinite growth, more and more people, more and more money, like we talked about earlier. But if that's what you want, great. But just when you first start out, just be very clear on the reality you want to create for yourself, and so you can just align yourself as you go. As you start, because we're all going to get pulled in different directions as we go, you can always remember what you wanted to create and just bring yourself back into that alignment. That's helped me a lot.
Thank you so much. I have so much to say to that, but I may have to go, and I know
time's limited today.
We'll have more opportunities to dig deeper into that.
We'll keep sharing as we go, because there's never going to be an end to this journey. We're always going to keep learning, so we'll keep checking in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claire. Pleasure as always.
It's always good to check in, and I love how we get together every few months, and we talk about different topics, but of course there's always updates from our own lives, right? And from my own personal journey, I know that when my coaches or somebody I follow share about their very personal experience, that's when I learn the most, because it's like, that's how it really looks like. That's how you apply it. Like because we've heard these concepts a million times, like, oh, let go. You should let go. But then like you're in the middle of something. You're like, oh, I should not be angry. I should just let go.
You need a reminder.
Right? Like, you need to see how that actually looks. Like somebody's going for a situation, and then they're like, and this is how I respond because, this is the work I do and this is how it's applied. And you're like, oh, that's what it looks like.
We all need these reminders, though, don't we? Because it's so easy. Like when those big emotions hit you, like sadness or whatever it is, it's very easy to just kind of get caught up in the mind, trying to figure stuff out. Like, maybe I should reach out to more people on LinkedIn. Maybe I should create more videos on YouTube. And actually what you need to do is just, like you said, feel this. Just
Yeah.
surrender and feel this thing. And then when you feel aligned, then do the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna say one last thing, and then I'll let you go. It's with these podcasts too, because like sometimes I edit them like months later than when we did them. And honestly, I even get advised by like mine or yours or whoever else is doing it with me. I'm so advised by our own advice. I'm like, oh, because it's these reminders, like you're saying,
Yeah.
like, you know, we
Get your
like
advice.
forget. And then I'm like, oh my God, like this is, yeah, like, and it's like always
Yeah.
relevant to me in the time in the moment, even if I'm editing like a few
Yeah.
months later. And so I guess it kind of ties back to that, you know, why am I doing this? Like maybe, you know, even if like nobody listens to this podcast episode, like I'm still advised by our own advice. I'm loving this conversation. And, you know, somebody always listens to it, right? Like even if it's not 100 people, but you know, it's like at the end, I just love doing this. And so that's why I'm
Yeah.
going to keep doing it. It's like, keep coming back to that. Like, I love this. And
That's
it even
it.
serves
Follow what
me.
you
So
love.
surely it serves somebody else.
Follow what feels good. It sounds so simple, not easy to do because the mind is always kind of advise us to go elsewhere. But if you just follow what lights you up inside, that's what I'm always saying, then that's your higher self guiding you. What feels good, as opposed to the mind, which is always trying to guide you towards survival. You know, which is why so many people live these lives in the comfort zone. Just like, well, I could push myself, but that's a bit of a risk. I'll just stay here. And then you get to the end of life, and what is the biggest regret people have at the end of their lives? I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So I always remind people of that. I always remind myself of that because that's where the majority of humanity ends up at the end of their life, with regret. So don't end up at the end of your life with regret. Now you've got the chance to do something about it. We're in our prime right now, so this is the time to really live that aligned life if we are going to do it.
Thank you so much. I think, like you said, we all need that reminder all the time.
Yeah,
Because there's
I need it.
always more, right? Like even if, oh, I'm gonna start my business now, but there's always like I'm still holding back, and you know
Yeah.
we're always holding back. There's always more.
Oh yeah, that's it. You can go like the idea of going to bigger podcast, going on stage. These things scare me, but it's like, okay, there's an opportunity there. If I face that fear, I'm going to grow on the other side of it. And so that's the attitude you need to have, really, when it comes to being an entrepreneur. It's like move towards the fear.
Thank you, Mark.
Beautiful.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Claire. I shall have to go, but beautiful chat as always. Love chatting to you, and I'm sure we'll do this again soon.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.